I forgot that I wasn't wearing a ring.
Wow!
Are you trying to leave me?
Are you trying to leave me?
No!
Then no.
My fingers don't fit my ring anymore.
My ring is in the bedroom. And I'm at home with you.
I got my eye on you. Hello, and welcome back to the Conspiracy Couple Podcast. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Ethan.
And today we have another very interesting topic to dive into with you guys. But before we get started, we did just want to acknowledge that we are a little off schedule with this episode.
Well, we said we would be.
We said we would be, so you should have known.
Yeah.
Should have known. But good news. I did pass my credentialing exam, so now I am officially an RD. I have letters after my name, and all the studying has paid off. So I'm very excited. I'm still kind of in shock that I passed, but I mean, we're okay. I'm very excited. I paid the fees and everything. So that's very good news, and I think that it should be, warrant a little congratulations.
5-star review.
A 5-star review. I mean, give me a 5-star review to say, Marissa, congratulations. Your 7 years of hard work paid off. Anyways, that's my big update. Ethan, do you have any updates?
I was sick, so
if his voice sounds strange,
yeah,
it's because of that.
Yeah. We weren't gonna be as off schedule as we are.
And then you got sick.
But then I got sick.
Yes, it was a really, hectic last week.
Yes.
But, we're here. We're back.
I'm getting my first day off. As of recording, I'm getting my first day off tomorrow that I've had in 2 weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I know.
Congratulations, Ethan.
I know.
And while you're on the subject of speaking, I'm going to toss it over to you for our social media.
While I'm on the subject of speaking?
Yeah.
I don't think I was on the subject of speaking. I think I was just speaking. My subject was work. Anyway.
Whatever you want to say.
Follow us on Instagram at Conspiracy Couple. Follow us on TikTok at Conspiracy Couple Podcast. We're going to get more active on there. We have not posted a TikTok in a while.
It's been really tough.
We'll get into it.
We'll get into it.
We're going to be better.
Send us ideas.
Things are settling down, so we'll be better. And also, of course, if you are not already, subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comment on this video. Leave a like. Turn on post notifications. All those things that people tell you to do on YouTube. Do them for us.
Yes.
Do them for us.
Do them for us.
Yeah. Or Conspiracy Couple Podcast if you are not watching on YouTube and think, hey, maybe I want to watch these people talk.
Maybe.
And see the occasional PNG that Ethan puts on the screen. That's
a picture, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a JPEG. Sometimes it's a PNG.
Okay, today, my best friend made fun of me because I was sending her a picture off of the internet of what I wanted my Halloween costume to be, and she made fun of me for sending her the JPEG and not sending her a screenshot.
So you saved the photo and sent it to her instead of
I just pressed share.
It?
I just pressed share. And then it came up as a link, and then it said JPEG, and then she laughed at me. And then she was like, you didn't update your phone, did you? And I was like, there's an update?
Yes, there was an update. You know about this.
Anyways, so apparently you'll see it PNG.
Maybe your phone would be updated if you charged your phone at night like a normal person.
I've heard that it's actually better for your phone to not charge it through the night. So I heard that on TikTok, and if I see it on TikTok, it's got to be true.
See, I did that for a little bit too, and then my phone was dead all the time.
My phone is actually not dead that often.
I can't charge it during the day because I'm at work.
Oh. I have an office,
I went back
so I
to
can charge it.
At night. Oh,
I share it with 3 other people, but you know what? It's okay. We're going to get into it, if that's all right with you.
No, I think we should start talking about other things for another 10 minutes.
I want to go to bed early tonight, so we're just going to get into it, okay?
Okay.
So this week on the podcast, we are going to be discussing the strange road trip and the strange disappearance of the Tromp family.
Oh.
Why are you laughing?
Because I've seen the Tromp Family on our YouTube search bar, and I thought it was a typo at first.
You thought I was just looking for the Trump family?
Yeah,
videos?
that's why I was like, is there a Trump family conspiracy?
Oh, I'm sure
there is.
I'm sure there is.
But I remember asking you about it, and you were like, oh, don't worry about it. I was like, oh, so it's for the conspiracy couple. But yeah.
So
Tromp Family.
The Tromp, Tromp. So Ethan, I'm going to assume I know the answer to this question, but have you heard anything about the Tromp family?
No.
Okay. So you should get buckled in because one, we are going to be traveling to Australia for this case, and
Down under.
two, we are going to be going on a road trip. So you need to put your seatbelt on.
Well, you can't drive to Australia from here.
Well, we're going to be doing a road trip in Australia.
Down under.
So put your seatbelt on. Okay, so specifically, we're going to be starting in a town called Sylvan, Australia. And this is in a suburb outside of Melbourne. So we're going to start in Sylvan, but we're going to be making our way around the continent. So I'm going to start by introducing you to the Tromp family. So we have the dad, Mark Tromp, and at the time of this, he was 51, and the mom, Jacoba Tromp, who was 53 years old.
Jacoba.
No, interesting name. So Mark and Jacoba have 3 children. Their kids are 29-year-old Rihanna, 25-year-old Mitchell, and 22-year-old Ella.
Wow, it's pretty cool that Rihanna's performing the halftime show, isn't it?
Right. So this is their age at the time of the incident. They are not this age
When
still.
was the incident?
2016.
Okay.
So this family of 5 all lived together. They all lived in the same house, and they all worked on this farm that they owned as a family together. So we're going to be talking about kind of their life in bits and pieces as we go through this road trip. So we're going to start on August 29th, 2016. The whole family gets in their car and flees from the family farm for no discernible reason. And the following case would prove to be the most bizarre case in Australia for the past 30 years, according to a local police sergeant.
I feel that's a bold claim. How does he know about every single case in Australia?
Because he
for the last
was
30
a
years?
police sergeant in the area.
Australia is a big continent.
It's a pretty
It's
bizarre
actually a
case.
small continent, but it's a
I was
big
like,
country.
it's really not that big.
It's a big country.
It's a pretty bizarre case. So I think
They had a war with the emus, so I mean, I'm just saying, weird things happen down there.
This is pretty weird, though. Okay, so as I said, the family owns a couple businesses together. So they own an earth-moving company and
What does that mean?
Like, I'm assuming you move dirt and stuff.
Oh.
And the second is a berry farm, or specifically a red currant berry farm. So we don't really grow those in America. So all of the members of the family work together. And they apparently worked very hard and took very few days off, working about 7 days a week.
If they're farmers, I mean, it's fairly common, I think.
Right, so they all live together, they all work together, they're not taking any days off.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
So they leave, right? And in the time that they have left, the police come to the home. And we're going to get into more step-by-step of their trip, but we're just going to kind of get an overview of what the police find.
Why did the police come to the home?
So we're going to get there, but
Okay.
basically, so they go to the home, and when they get there, they're investigating, and what they find inside raises even more questions. So they find the family members' cell phones, their passports, identification documents, and all of their credit cards, all inside the house.
Okay, so they left and didn't bring anything with them.
They left and did not bring anything with them except for cash. So when they left, they only brought cash with them, as they had decided they were going to go off the grid.
Did they bring, like, luggage or clothing?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So apparently, it kind of came to be after their investigation that all of the members of the family, or at least some of the members of the family, may have had some concern that someone was out to get them.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of take it step by step.
You keep saying that.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep saying that.
Okay.
So I get it now.
The family leaves in their daughter Ella's SUV. And when they first leave, they drive for a day and a half straight without stopping, 500 miles from their home in Sylvan to a town called Bathurst. So when they left, they apparently did not have a destination in mind. They just got in their car and drove.
Right, which would make you think that they're fleeing from something, not driving to something.
Right. So all of them left their cell phones at home except Mitchell. So Mitchell brought his cell phone.
Which one was Mitchell?
Mitchell's the middle child. And so he's the only one in the family that brings a cell phone. However, 19 miles into their trip, Mitchell threw his cell phone from the window of the car after his parents told him that he had to. So apparently, they were very concerned that someone was using Mitchell's phone to track them.
Right.
So Mitchell had snuck the phone onto the trip. Nobody knew he brought it. He snuck it into the car. And when his family found out that he had it, he threw it out the window. And apparently, he had only agreed to go on the trip because he was nervous and was worried about his family and wanted to keep an eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
But he shortly found them and what he considered to be delusions hard to tolerate. So on Tuesday, August 30th at 7 o'clock in the morning, Mitchell left the rest of his family. And he said that he left the family after beginning to think that there was really no basis for their concerns, and that he was just didn't really want to go along with it anymore. So Mitchell leaves at 7 in the morning. That same day, the rest of the family leaves Bathurst and drives to the Jenolan Caves, which was a pretty popular tourist destination in the area.
So did Mitchell just stay in that one town?
No. So we're going to get to how Mitchell makes it home. But Mitchell makes it home eventually. So 50 miles away from Bathurst, where Mitchell breaks off from the family, they go to the Jenolan Caves. So while they're there, the two daughters, Rihanna and Ella, steal a car and leave the rest of the family.
Oh.
So the two of them drive this car to a town called Goulburn, which is 95 miles away from the Jenolan Caves. When they get to this town, they report their parents missing. So they had apparently left, or the sisters leave, because they were worried about who was going to feed the family's horses or take care of the farm while they were gone. So at this point, all of the children have split off. However, the sisters, Rihanna and Ella, when they get to town and report their parents missing, they split up at a gas station in town. So Ella decides that she wants to go home because she wants to feed the horses. And Rihanna didn't say why she didn't want to go with her sister. She just didn't go with Ella. However, Rihanna was later found by a local man in the back of his truck. She was laying in the back of his truck. And he was driving. And he discovered that she was in the back of the truck when he felt a strange kick. So he feels a kick, he pulls over, and he finds Rihanna in the back of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, she was described as being catatonic and was unable to remember or say her own name. So she was taken to the hospital and treated for a stress-related illness. And she ended up staying in the hospital for months after this. Eventually, the charges against her for stealing the car were dropped for mental health reasons. So meanwhile, Rihanna has been found in this man's car, and now she's in the hospital. Ella had made it back to their home, and she had gotten there later that evening in the vehicle they had stolen. So Ella was the first member of the Tromp family to be located. And when she gets to the house, she finds the police there. Because her and Rihanna had reported them missing.
So the police showed up because they had reported her parents missing.
Right. So Ella gets home and she finds the police at the house.
Okay.
So at this time, the police are reporting.
Reporting?
Or not reporting, they're investigating.
Oh.
So all throughout the house, there were financial documents from the family farm spanning over years. And they were all laid about in a very organized manner, as well as, like I said, their credit cards, passports, cell phones, and ID. And those were all scattered throughout the house. So the police felt that it was clear that the family was looking for something in their family financial records, as the home was a little bit messy, but the financial records were all kind of organized about the house. Also, the front door was unlocked. So they just were able to walk in the house. And many of the cars on the property had the doors open and the keys in the ignition. So, August 31st, which is the next day, Mitchell ends up making it home. So he had traveled on the train and on various public transportation methods, and he ends up back at the house. At this point, Ella and Mitchell are back at the house together. And when they get there, they talk to the police, and they say that they were very concerned about their parents and that they were actually scared for their lives when they were with their parents. So for the most part, Ella and Mitchell were determined to be pretty mentally sound when they were talking to the police.
Mm-hmm.
However, they did do a media interview together that some people found very strange, where they say they don't really know what had been going on and that they were just as confused as the rest of the country. However, people watching felt like they were trying to hide something, or that there was something that they were keeping from the public. So at this point, they do the media interview. People think it's like weird, they're hiding something. And at this point, the manhunt for their parents intensifies. They still haven't located the parents. So at the time where Mitchell had gotten home, his parents had turned around and driven down a similar route that they had taken on the way up to Bathurst. And they ended up in a town called Wangaratta. So when they get into this town, Mark and Jacoba separate from each other. So while in Wangaratta, a young couple driving down the road and playing Pokemon Go was dangerously tailgated by Mark Tromp for miles. Apparently he was driving so close to them that they couldn't even see his headlights. And every time they would pull off the road or stop, he would do the same. So eventually, Mark stops the car, gets out, and walks into the middle of the street towards them.
Interesting.
He stood there in the middle of the street and stared at them for a while, before turning and running into the woods of a place called Marawa Park, where he disappeared. So police investigated the area and searched the park for him, but they could not find him. His car was unlocked and still had the keys in the ignition. So apparently there was a nearby hotel that had had one of their rooms broken into, and police suspect that he had broken into the hotel and slept in the room. So, the next day, September 1st, Jacoba takes a bus, and she went back up towards Bathurst. So they're kind of going like this, back and forth, back and forth. So she's going back up towards Bathurst, and she stops at a town called Yaz and attempts to get a hotel. In that town, she was taken to the hospital after she was found dazed on the side of the road. While she was at the hospital, she was recognized by the hospital employees as the missing woman. So she was recognized as Jacoba by the employee. And she was treated for a stress-related illness similar to her daughter, Rihanna. So she was later transferred to the same hospital and psychiatric ward as Rihanna, where she also stayed for months after. So, September 3rd. So this is 2 days after they, split up. Mark was found wandering on the street in Wangaratta. So he was described as being extremely agitated when he was found. He was taken to the police station where he was kept for 5 hours and given a mental health exam before being picked up by his brother. And he apparently was still pretty agitated as he gave the media waiting outside the station the middle finger on his way out. So this was 6 days after the family left their home for their trip. And he did later apologize for flipping the media off. So Mark is finally found nearly a week after they leave. So on September 4th, Mitchell and Ella spoke to the media and they spoke to the media again and thanked everyone for their concern and help finding their father, and said that they were confused by the situation again. On September 5th, Ella was actually charged with crimes associated with stealing the car she had used to get back home, but the charges were later dropped. And on September 6th, Mark releases a statement saying that he is sorry for all of the resources that have been used in the search for their family. So very shortly after this, the family goes back to work as usual on their farm, but they apparently dropped the pick-your-own-berries portion of the farm. Now, the family had no history of mental illness, no evidence of drug use, no outstanding debt that they may want to get away from, and no known association with a religious group or cult. The police also did not identify any threats to their family in their investigation of the situation that may warrant this event. So the question is, why did they leave, and why did the family split up slowly? So let's get into some of the theories about what may have prompted this. So the first theory is that the family was all poisoned by some form of toxin that had grown on their farm. So this toxin could have caused them to all experience delusions or paranoia of some sort. It could have been from the chemicals they sprayed on their crops or from any like pesticides, herbicides, that kind of thing. Is there any evidence for this? Not really. And people don't really know which specific toxin could have been causing this, just that it could have been a toxin or a poison.
Wouldn't that imply that it would happen more than once, though?
Like that it would happen to them more than once, or that it would happen to other people?
Well, them more than once, because they're the ones interacting with their plants the most. But you also could argue, like, see that maybe it would happen to other people.
Hypothetically, the thing is with poison, there is the question of if it's something that could build up in their system.
Right, but that's my point, is they've been doing this for such a long time. Like, why is this just like a one-off incident that hasn't repeated itself?
I mean, I think that's the big question about what this theory is. Like, why didn't this happen before? Like, why was this... I mean, we do see that the family had... At least one member of the family had been experiencing delusions for some time leading up to this. But then you think, wouldn't it have been more severe? I mean, there is a possibility that maybe they switched to pesticides or switched brands, or at some point their body kind of like accumulated enough of the toxin that it wasn't able to kind of fight it off anymore. So those are just some of the questions that could be surrounding this theory.
Yeah.
Another theory is that they were poisoned by ergot. So remember, this is the same theory that popped up in the Salem Witch Trials episode. So if you remember, ergot is a fungus that can grow on grains, and when ingested, it can apparently have an LSD-like effect on people, causing delusions, hallucinations, and muscle spasms.
Mm-hmm.
And this crop can apparently, or this fungus, I guess, can apparently grow in the area where their farm was. And if the family had eaten bread made from wheat infected with ergot, they could have experienced these symptoms associated with it.
But again, wouldn't you expect a larger amount of people?
Well, not necessarily if they're just getting it from their farm. I mean, although they don't grow wheat.
So then they aren't getting it from their farm.
Right. Also, ergotism is more likely to affect children. As we kind of talked about in the Salem Witch Trials episode, children are more prone to experience symptoms. However, it's not like out of the realm of possibility that it could affect adults.
Right, but if it was because they don't make their own bread, because they aren't a wheat farm, then they're obviously buying their bread or getting their bread from somewhere, which then you would think
other people are eating the same bread.
Yeah, you would see more instances of this.
True. And that's one thing. And
or similar, not obviously not the same, exact same thing, but instances of
this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is there's not really any evidence that points to this theory, as well as what you were saying, Ethan, about, well, if this is the case, they're not growing their own wheat.
Right.
I mean, they have a berry farm.
Right.
One farm isn't the same as any other farm.
Right.
They're all very different.
Wheat and berries are different.
We live in farming, like a big farming area.
I've lived in farming areas my whole life.
Yeah, Ethan's lived in farming areas his whole life, and we currently live in a big farming and specifically orchards.
And I grew up in a very heavy wheat farming area,
yeah. So
I'm
you know
fairly
all about
familiar
this.
with. Well, I wasn't a farmer, so I'm not very familiar.
Yeah.
But
So basically, your proximity makes you a farmer. My proximity makes me a sommelier. It's because there's a lot of wineries in here.
Or a farmer.
Anyways, also...
I also live where you live.
You also live where I live, that's true. We do live in the same house.
Yeah.
That's how marriage works usually.
Yeah.
So also in this, as we mentioned in the Salem Witch Trials episode, there are other symptoms associated with ergotism that the family did not exhibit, to our knowledge.
Like becoming a witch.
True, or disintegrating fingernails.
Like a witch.
Another kind of within the realm of the poison theory is that the water on their property had been tainted. There's not really a ton of evidence for this theory, and the family was on the same water supply as about 80% of the population.
So again, you would expect other people to show similar symptoms or go through similar things.
Right. Also, when the police came to the home, they drank from the water supply. So if there was a poison that was affecting them in this way, you would think that other people in the area who use the same water supply would also be affected.
Right.
Another theory is they were suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. So carbon monoxide is something that literally had me in a chokehold of terror for most of my childhood. I thought for sure I was going to die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Why?
Because I watched a show one time and someone died from carbon monoxide poisoning, and it's odorless and tasteless. And so you don't know it's happening. So I was like very afraid for a very long time, and that like I slept with my window open every night. And bless my mom, right? Like every time we watch this episode, every time we listen to an episode, you should just be thinking, wow, Susan's an incredible person for putting up with Marissa for all these years.
And I put up with you now.
And you do put up with me now, but you still have... Mom still has 21 years on you.
Yeah.
Anyways, so carbon monoxide, odorless, tasteless, and it can build up in your bloodstream over a period of time, and eventually, if it's not treated, it can lead to death. So some of the symptoms associated with carbon monoxide poisoning include headache, weakness, confusion, nausea or vomiting, and loss of consciousness. Again, the problem here is that there isn't any evidence for this, and these symptoms aren't consistent with what they were experiencing.
Right.
So with all of these poisoning theories, the farm, water, and family were all tested pretty extensively, and there was no evidence of poisoning to be found.
Right. And you said this earlier, I think, but they never have said, like, this is why they're just like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry that you guys, we, like, wasted your time looking for us.
The family has never offered an explanation, and if you ask the family, they will still say they don't know what happened.
Interesting.
So other theories include that they were fleeing from the mob for some reason. So this is why people think they may have left their passports and didn't flee the country. Because if they were afraid of the mob, they could have been afraid the mob would track their passports.
Yeah, but they also weren't gone that long.
They were gone for 6 days.
So, like, the mob is like, we're going to come get you in the next 5 days. If you can evade us for 5 days, then you're free. Then you're good.
Right. Also, if the parents were really that scared of the mob or whoever was after them, why did they let their kids leave on their own?
Right.
Because, yes, their kids were adults. And, like, yes, like, Rihanna was... like, they were adults. However, like, the parental instinct never dies. It's not like your kid turns 18 and you're like, oh, okay, well, they're on their own now. I don't really... whatever happens to them happens.
Well, and you would make that argument that they all went together in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So... but if they were fleeing from someone, you would think that they would be gone for more than a week.
Right. Right. And there's no evidence for this. There's no evidence why would the mob be after them. And of course, the mob is
also, if you're fleeing from the mob, it doesn't make sense to leave your passport and not flee the country. It makes sense to flee the country and get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Get as far away as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with fleeing the mob, but I would assume that that would be the best course of action.
I feel like...
and if I had kids with me and I'm like, okay, kids, we're going to go off the grid and, like, escape the mob, there's no way that one day later I'm like, okay, you guys can go by yourself. Like, those kids are staying with me, right? Like, I'm not letting them out of my sight.
Right. I would go to a very different country.
Yeah.
Because it's so much harder to track you if you're not in the same country. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they went into, like, the safari in... Australia. They went to like a tourist destination. They kept driving around the same area. They would have been very easy to find.
Yeah, right. And I think the mob is like a very convenient boogeyman. Like, oh, right. Something weird happened. It's the mob. It's not always the mob. Yeah. There are many times where it could be the mob. It's not always the mob.
Again, and the biggest thing is really then why did they come back in 6 days? Like, why were they only gone for that long?
Another theory is they were trying to escape debt of some kind. Again, all of their financial records were left out when they fled. Right. And there was no problems with debt in the family.
Right.
So this next theory is the most popular theory. Oh. So this is the most popular theory. And this is that the family suffered from something called folie à deux, which is a term that means a madness shared by two.
There was 5.
It's just what the term means.
Oh.
So folie à deux is a French term.
Folie à deux.
And for all my elder emo and punk kids out there, it is also the name of probably, in my opinion, the best Fall Out Boy album and one of the best albums of all time.
Okay.
Anyways, I just have to throw that out there because I'm just like...
Is that one that has things for the murmurs?
Like, I don't remember what's... Folie à deux, studio album by Fall Out Boy. Oh my gosh, I need to listen to this album.
I don't recognize a single song.
You don't?
No. I don't recognize any of these.
It's really good. It's a really good album. Anyways, I'm sure someone will appreciate that.
Someone.
So the definition of this disorder is an identical or similar mental disorder affecting 2 or more individuals, usually the members of a close family. So this can take the form of many mental symptoms, but will typically present as delusions. So 90% of all cases or reported cases of this disorder are within families, either couples, parents and children, or siblings.
Interesting. So it's essentially, the theory is that they had a shared delusion.
Yes. So
but not fully shared, because Mitchell said that he only agreed to come.
So we're going to get into that a little bit more.
Okay.
So this is very rare. This is a very rare psychological event, but there are recorded instances of this happening in families all over the world and spanning centuries. So the term was first coined in the 19th century when a French couple both began to exhibit paranoid and delusional behavior. So doctors weren't able to tell which member of the couple had first began to experience these symptoms, but it was clear that they had gotten into this cycle of mirroring and reinforcing the other's delusions.
It's romantic.
So romantic. Sharing delusions.
Yeah.
So they don't know who had the first one in this case, but they were just kind of feeding off each other. So in this particular case, people aren't sure whether it was Mark or Jacoba who first began experiencing delusions and who began to mirror the other. But people believe it was the 2 of them who first experienced the delusion.
So I think the parents had delusions and the kids kind of went with them to make sure they were okay?
So there's kind of different aspects we're going to do. So apparently the couple had been experiencing some stress in the time leading up to the disappearance, and they had these fears that someone was out to rob them or kill them. So people think that the children then mirrored the delusion of their parents to varying extents. So the family was very close. Mm-hmm. They lived together, they worked together, and they spent almost all of their time together as a unit. So the thing about this disorder is that when a person is removed from the primary person causing this or the primary person with the delusions, their symptoms will disappear and they will return back to normal.
But they weren't removed. They were all together still.
They were, but this could explain why, as some of the children began to break away from the family, they were able to get treatment and then come back to their senses, or so to speak. So like when Mitchell leaves, he's able to kind of seem normal. He operates and he's like, I actually don't know what happened. Ella leaves and she's like, I don't really know what happened either. So as they were removed from the person who was experiencing the delusions first, they kind of came back to their senses.
Okay.
So that's one theory with like the shared delusion.
Interesting.
So another theory, kind of along the same veins, is that psychosis occurred in one family member and the actions of the rest of the family were based out of fear more than mental illness.
So it was like one person was having these delusions and everyone else was like, okay. Like
so either they were scared for them or scared of them. Right. So this wouldn't explain some of the symptoms that the family members experienced, including memory loss or catatonia in the cases of Rihanna and Jacoba. Mm-hmm. This could explain the behaviors of Ella and Mitchell, however, who followed along out of fear, but then realized what was happening shortly into the trip and left.
Right.
Another video I watched talked about something called group panic, and she used the example of a haunted house, which I thought that was a really good example of this. So you go with a group to the haunted house, and you're walking along, and you're nervous, but you're fine. Or maybe you don't get scared of haunted houses, but I do. So you're walking along and you're nervous and you're hyped up.
Yeah.
And you're okay.
That's the fun.
Until one person in the group gets scared and starts to scream. After that, you find yourself screaming. Even though, like, you're screaming, you're scared, even though you didn't see the thing that scared the first person and made them scream.
Oh, I don't get scared if I don't see it.
I 100% do.
Really?
This is why I don't go to haunted houses. The last time I went to a haunted house, I was a freshman in college and we went as a group. And there were like 5 of us. And one of the guys like screamed and like lunged just to scare me. And I started screaming and so did everyone else in the group. Nothing had happened, but I was screaming because someone else had screamed. But anyways, so you get hyped up, right? Because someone else got hyped up first.
Well, and also the environment and everything you're in, and you're expecting to get scared, so that you're kind of like already kind of on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the videos I watched talked about how the family was all very interconnected with each other, and not only like were they a family, but they worked together. And so they had a lot of trust in each other. The children had a lot of trust in their parents. And so when their father or their father and mother started experiencing delusions about being followed or being tracked, then they may have been scared and believed him because they trusted him. So they thought, okay, if dad is scared, I should be scared too.
So like he knows something we don't. We're going to trust him, follow him. And then as they go along, they realize, oh no, he's like going through something. Which in my mind doesn't mean you would leave. Especially if like this family is as close-knit as possible. You just would like try to get him to come back. Because you're like, hey, there's obviously something wrong. Like you need to... But that wouldn't explain the fact that Rihanna, like the symptoms that Rihanna and Jacoba experienced.
Right. So Rihanna did an interview about a year after the accident. And this was months and months of intensive psychiatric treatment that came before this interview. So Rihanna said that her father was suffering a mental breakdown of some kind that had been slowly building. But that after a while, she actually began to believe his delusions, that they were in danger of some kind. So the final theory that I'm going to talk about is that this was a deliberate action planned and carried out by the family for attention or for some other reason. The main problem is this theory is, what were they hoping to gain from this?
Right, wouldn't they be living it up? Like, wouldn't they...
Like, what kind of attention did they want?
If that's what you're doing, then why would you just be like, oh no, it don't happen, sorry.
Right,
the response kind of does seem like they were embarrassed by it. Which leads me to believe like it is one of these like shared delusions, or even just like one person's delusion, like kind of thing, and carried them off into this like... Yeah, they seem more embarrassed rather than like, okay, let's capitalize on all the attention we have now.
Let's talk more about this, and how about we go on Good Morning Australia. I almost said Good Morning America. Good Morning Australia. And we're going to talk about this experience.
Good day, Australia.
Good day, Australia. Anyways. So, yeah, but, like, what kind of attention do they want? Like, they own a farm. And then when they get back, they downsize the services of their farm.
Right.
And, like, how does them, like, disappearing and doing this weird road trip bring back publicity to the farm?
Not good publicity.
Not good publicity. Like, nobody's like, when I want to get red currants, I'm going to go to the family that had this, like, shared delusion.
That went crazy, and yeah.
Right, like, people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing. We have all these theories, but to this day, nobody from the family can explain what happened to them, or anyone else has, like, this is what happened. And the family doesn't know what happened on their 800-mile road trip, and how 2 members of the family ended up needing intense psychological treatment for months afterwards. So, as we wind down, Ethan, what do you think of all this?
Yeah, it's definitely strange. If I were to lean one way, I'd probably go with some sort of shared psychosis or something like that. And definitely their actions post this definitely lead me to think that it would be something like that rather than some sort of attention or some sort of like running away from something. Because again, like I've said, they were not gone very long. They didn't do a very good job running away, and they're back. So, you know, what were they running away from? I am surprised that there's no mind control or alien theory. I was expecting one of those to come up.
You want to suggest one?
Well...
You want to propose one?
So...
You're like, no.
I haven't... I mean, I wouldn't believe that. I just kind of expected that to be a part of something.
I was expecting it too.
Like, if they were a part of some sort of mind control experiment, and that was why all of this happened. Or even that they had an alien encounter or something like that, and then the government, to try and shut them up,
made them look crazy.
Made them go crazy.
Or maybe these symptoms were symptoms that happened after they had this encounter. Okay, so now we have two additional theories to add to the list.
Yeah. With just as much evidence as the other ones. With just
as much evidence as a lot of the other ones. So, you think that it's shared psychosis?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. There's
a long pause there.
I know. I wanted to keep you on your toes. I agree. I do think that, the case of Folie à Deux does make a lot of sense. In that it does seem like, for the most part, the other family members were also mirroring the delusions.
Right.
The only one who I think maybe wasn't was Mitchell.
Yeah, and he just kind of was like...
Okay, but he was like scared for his family.
Okay,
right.
And that does kind of make sense with like the thing that Rihanna said. Like, she said that her father was experiencing paranoia and like having a mental breakdown. And then she slowly started to... Like, that to me sounds like the Folie à Deux thing.
Yeah.
Whereas at first it was just him, and then everybody else kind of came on board because of this.
Yeah. And I do think people, like certain people, are more susceptible to this kind of thing. I mean, I just think of like how susceptible I would be to like if my mom started experiencing this kind of thing. I'd probably be like back when I lived with her, I would have been very inclined to probably go along with what she was saying because, you have that trust relationship. You have that like that closeness of a family and you kind of think like, oh, well, if my dad thinks there's something wrong, then there probably is something wrong. Like, you don't expect that your parents are experiencing psychosis of some sort. And so I think that for the most part, it was probably Mark who experienced it first, then Jacoba, and then I think probably the two girls to different extents. I think Mitchell was probably more on the side of like wanting to like make sure his family was okay. Yeah. But we want to know what you guys think. This case was like super interesting for me for research. And yeah, I just thought it was fascinating. I watched a ton of videos on it. And a lot of people have like a lot of different thoughts about it. And so we want to know what you guys think. Is there a theory that we didn't mention that you think might be the case? And if so, why is that? We do want to thank you for tuning in and listening, and yeah, leave us a comment about what you think and what your theory is, and about anything you want us to talk about in the future. And be prepared, because our Halloween episode is coming, and we will be in costume, and it'll be spooky. Leave us a nice 5-star review on your streaming platform of choice. Share us with a family member or a friend if you want to see us wear costumes. Just, for funsies.
Leave a comment about what you think we're going to dress up as.
Leave a comment. Halloween. Ooh, yeah. Guess what you think our costume's going to be. If you already know because we've told you, you can't answer.
It's true.
Okay. So we will be back, hopefully, in 1 week. Bye.
Bye.